The Hidden Skills Club, Covert DBT for Stigma, Surveillance, and High-Risk Professions by Strikey Roy. Copyright C. 2026 by Strikey Roy. All rights reserved. No part of this publication may be reproduced, stored in a retrieval system, or transmitted in any form or by any means, electronic, mechanical, photocopying, recording, or otherwise, without the prior written permission of the author. The information in this book is provided for general informational purposes only. While every effort has been made to ensure accuracy at the time of publication, the content is not intended as a substitute for professional advice, guidance, or services. The author and publisher make no representations or warranties regarding the completeness, accuracy, or applicability of the information provided. Any reliance placed on this material is strictly at the reader's own risk. Readers are encouraged to seek appropriate professional advice before making decisions based on the contents of this book. The author and publisher disclaim all liability for any loss, damage, or disruption caused by the use or application of the information herein. Preface. When I began working with people in high-risk, monitored, and highly stigmatized roles, I did not set out to write a book. I set out to listen. I sat in small rooms, on fire station couches, beside prison intake desks, and in the quiet corners of community centers where migrants gathered. People told me about things they could not say out loud. They described fear of professional consequences, of being labeled weak, or of being exposed to surveillance that could harm them or their families. Those conversations changed my work. They pushed me to take what I knew about evidence-based treatments, especially dialectical behavior therapy, and make it usable where open help was not possible. This book is born from those conversations and from years of trying and failing in modest ways. Early on, I brought standard group curricula into workplaces, thinking people could adapt. I was wrong more often than I was right. The material was good, but the format was wrong. It drew attention. It required time that people did not have. It asked participants to name feelings in ways that felt unsafe. From those missteps came a clearer question, simple and stubborn. How do you translate real therapeutic skills into practices that are small, private, and still effective? That question became the engine of this work. The Hidden Skills Club is the answer we built. It is not a simplified therapy manual. It is a blueprint for covertly teaching and practicing core DBT skills. You will find discreet psychoeducation, micro-mindfulness exercises you can do in seconds, emotion regulation tools that fit in a pocket or a routine, and peer support protocols designed for confidentiality and safety. Every chapter grew from field testing. Some ideas worked immediately, others needed refining, or they were abandoned. I have included the failures alongside the successes. I want readers to see what was risky, what was ethical, and what actually helped people stay safe and get better. Ethics and safety are at the center of this book. Helping people in secret raises real dilemmas. When is concealment protective? And when does it prevent needed care? How do you get consent when disclosure itself is dangerous? How do peers hold each other accountable without turning into another surveillance regime? I take these questions seriously. I offer practical guidance and checklists. I also offer a framework for weighing risks, documenting decisions, and engaging leaders in ways that protect people who cannot seek help openly. The goal is harm reduction, not secrecy for secrecy. The methods here are pragmatic. You will read short case vignettes that show how a tool was used in context. You will find practitioner checklists for safety planning and for setting up low-visibility peer groups. There are concrete scripts for introducing micro-skills in a 5-minute conversation. And there are templates you can adapt for training that looks like routine briefing, shift check-ins, or wellness moments. I wrote the book so a busy clinician, a team leader, or a peer supporter can pick it up and use something today. One of the hardest lessons I learned was about trust. Trust is fragile in monitored environments. It is earned in tiny actions over time. I learned to value redundancy. If a skill can be practiced 2 or 3 different ways, it is more likely to survive scrutiny. If a peer protocol has a built-in mechanism for anonymous feedback, it is more likely to be used. If training can be embedded into existing routines, it is less likely to be noticed and more likely to stick. Those lessons shape the structure of this book. They are the reason the interventions are modular, low profile, and adaptable. This book matters because people in these roles cannot always wait for perfect systems. They need tools they can use now, and organizations need pathways to create protected access without exposing staff to harm. Whether you are a frontline responder searching for private coping tools, a clinician designing training for a workforce under surveillance, or a leader trying to protect staff welfare, this book is written for you. My hope is that the strategies here reduce suffering, preserve dignity, and create pockets of safety where people can build resilience. Thank you for reading. Thank you for showing up for people who must hide parts of their pain to survive. I am grateful for the conversations that shaped this work, for the professionals who tested ideas in difficult conditions, and for the courage of the people who shared their stories. If this book helps one more person find a small, safe way to breathe, the work will have been worth it. With gratitude, Strikey Roy for House Panther. Thank you for your insightful guidance and steadfast support in bringing the Hidden Skills Club to life. Chapter 1: Foundations of Covert DBT in High-Risk Contexts. You are on a night shift in a busy emergency unit. A colleague who has always been steady suddenly starts missing cues, snaps at patients, and slips out for long, unexplained breaks. You worry. You cannot send them to a clinic without risking their job or making them a target in a unit that punishes weakness. You also cannot do nothing. This is the reality for many people working where exposure, stigma, or surveillance make open help impossible. The question becomes not whether to help, but how to help safely. This chapter lays the groundwork for that how. It explains when covert DBT makes clinical and ethical sense, and it gives clear criteria to guide those hard decisions. Covert care is not a default. It is a carefully chosen option, used when traditional referral would cause more harm than a discreet, peer-delivered, skills-based approach. The core principle is harm reduction, combined with respect for autonomy, confidentiality, and organizational safety. Risk matters, and it must be defined concretely. Use these 4 criteria to evaluate a situation. 1. Clear occupational or legal consequences if the person seeks formal care. 2. Immediate safety, concerns that can be reduced by skills practice. 3. The person's capacity to consent to peer-based, discreet support, even if they cannot name their needs publicly. 4. No imminent threat that requires formal, compulsory intervention. If the situation meets these conditions, covert DBT can be ethically justified as a temporary, protective measure. To help you act, use this quick decision checklist. Ask, is formal care likely to cause harm to this person's job, freedom, or safety? Can short, skills-based strategies meaningfully reduce distress now? Is the person able to participate in private ways that protect their identity? Are there clear exit points where formal care can be pursued when circumstances allow? If the answer is yes to most of these, proceed with a discreet, documented plan. This introduction will show both the safeguards and the practical steps. You will read about how to assess risk without exposure. You will learn how to obtain informed, private consent. You will see case vignettes that model conversations and checklists that help keep support both effective and safe. The aim is pragmatic. Protect people now while creating pathways for safer, more open care later. Covert care is not secrecy for secrecy's sake. It is targeted, rights-respecting practice for specific, high-risk contexts. Throughout this chapter, we balance clinical evidence with field-tested tactics. Expect concrete tools you can use today and clear ethical guardrails to keep both helpers and the helped as safe as possible. Micro-DBT, translating core skills into silent, under 90-second practices. Micro-DBT packages core DBT skills into brief, silent practices you can do in under 90 seconds. The goal is immediate regulation, not therapy in a pill. Pick one simple action that reliably shifts your body or attention. Practice it until it becomes automatic. Then use it when you cannot be seen seeking help. Examples include paced breathing, a discreet grounding sequence, a muscle relax cue, and a mental validation script. These are tools to reduce arousal enough to prevent impulsive actions and to buy time until a safer moment for fuller support. A typical micro-practice starts with a sensory anchor, something external you can name without speaking. Touch the inside of your wrist, press your thumb to your palm, or shift your posture slightly. Pair that movement with a short breath pattern. Box breathing for 6 seconds or a 4/4 count. Finish with a one-line cognitive cue you rehearsed earlier. For example, I can handle this. One step at a time. Rehearsal is essential because covert settings rely on automaticity. TPP techniques can be miniaturized and made silent. Temperature change usually needs a splash of cold water, not always possible. Instead, use a cold object in your pocket, or tense and quickly release large muscles to change heart rate. Intense exercise can be a tight clench of fists and a rapid stepping motion in place. Paced breathing and progressive relaxation calm the nervous system in 90 seconds or less, and they are legal and low profile in almost any setting. A common misconception is that DBT must be long, formal, and therapist-led to help. That is partly true for complex disorders, where structured therapy is best. It is false to conclude that microskills cannot reduce immediate risk. Behavioral neuroscience shows that short, targeted actions can downregulate the amygdala and improve prefrontal control. In practice, brief skills often stop escalation, prevent crises, and create a bridge to later, fuller care when the environment allows. Quick emphasis point. Micro-DBT is emergency first, not a replacement for therapy. Use it to stabilize, not to diagnose or to manage chronic, untreated conditions alone. Keep ethical guardrails visible even when acting quietly. Obtain private consent whenever possible. Explain limits of confidentiality, and document decisions in a secure way that respects safety. Have clear exit plans, and escalate to formal care if safety thresholds are crossed. Covert skills are safest when embedded in an accountable peer protocol, with rotation, supervision, and periodic reassessment. Quick emphasis point. Practice these skills in safe contexts until they feel automatic, because automaticity is the difference between a tool you can use under surveillance and a skill you cannot access when you need it most. Safety, thresholds, ethics, and consent. When to escalate or preserve secrecy. Deciding whether to escalate to formal care or preserve secrecy is a clinical and ethical judgment, not just a tactical one. Use clear safety thresholds. Imminent risk of serious harm to self or others. Loss of capacity to make informed decisions. Evidence of abuse or exploitation. Or medical emergency signs. Unresponsiveness. Severe intoxication. Suicidal intent with plan and means. If any threshold is met, secrecy loses priority to safety. Before acting, run a rapid checklist. Current risk signs, known supports, legal obligations in your jurisdiction, and immediate steps to reduce harm. Document the decision in a way that balances accountability with safety, then schedule a follow-up review within a short window. Quick emphasis point. Safety first when imminent danger is present. even if secrecy would be compromised. Consent in covert contexts is complex, but not optional. Use staged consent, where people give permission for low-risk micro-skills, and separate explicit consent if any intervention might trigger disclosure or involve third parties. If someone lacks capacity, involve the least restrictive, legally sanctioned route for protection. When seeking consent is unsafe or impossible, apply the proportionality principle. Intervene only to the extent necessary to prevent harm, and document the rationale and alternatives considered. Train peers to use scripted language that clarifies limits of confidentiality without drawing attention. Quick emphasis point: consent should be practical and tiered, not all or nothing. Records that respect both safety and accountability are rarely talked about, but they matter. Use minimal need-to-know notes stored securely, with coded language if required by the environment. Include date, observable facts, risk assessment, actions taken, and a planned reassessment time. Avoid speculative or stigmatizing language. Create protocols for destroying or transferring records if the environment changes, and make sure at least one trusted supervisor knows how to access fuller documentation in an emergency. Quick emphasis point: keep brief, factual, and secure records that can be escalated when needed. Peer support protocols reduce individual moral risk and improve safety. Standardize role limits, hand-off procedures, and a rotation system so no one carries clandestine responsibility alone. Use buddy checks and mandatory debriefs after any escalation. Include a legal consultation step in your protocol, ideally pre-arranged, so peers can quickly confirm obligations. When possible, integrate covert support into formal organizational safety planning, so secrecy exists within a framework of oversight rather than in isolation. Quick emphasis point: shared protocols protect both the person in distress and the helpers. Legal and ethical duties vary widely, and ignorance is not an excuse. Familiarize yourself with mandatory reporting laws, workplace policies, and international protections that may apply to migrants or detainees. When laws conflict with harm-minimizing practice, document your decision-making process and seek rapid legal or ethical consultation. Consider low-visibility escalation paths, such as anonymous hotlines, neutral medical referrals, or transferring risk to a legally authorized responder. Mapping these options before a crisis saves time and reduces harmful improvisation. Quick emphasis point: know the local rules and pre-map escalation pathways that honor both safety and discretion. Helpers carry moral burden in covert programs, and burnout or moral injury erodes safety over time. Build regular supervision that addresses ethical distress, not just technical skills. Use case reviews to normalize tough calls and to refine thresholds based on outcomes. Create a small, trusted oversight group with diverse perspectives, including legal, clinical, and peer voices, to share responsibility for high-stakes decisions. Protect the well-being of helpers as actively as the people they support, because a compromised helper increases risk for everyone. Quick emphasis point: protect helpers with supervision and shared responsibility to sustain safe covert care. Chapter 2: Covert Psychoeducation and Brief Skill Scripts. 40% of first responders and military personnel will avoid formal mental health care at some point because of stigma, career risk, or surveillance. That statistic matters here. It explains why traditional handouts, long classes, and open therapy are often useless in high-risk settings. People need information they can read, act on, and hide in less than a minute. This chapter shows how to build that material and how to deliver it safely. Psychoeducation is the foundation of any skills program. In covert contexts, it must do 3 things at once. It must teach basic facts that reduce panic and confusion. It must be short enough to read covertly. It must use coded language that preserves meaning while limiting exposure. The one-page psychoeducation model meets those goals. One side of paper, or one screen, gives the essential model, the simplest rationale, and the first micro-skills someone can try immediately. Brief skill scripts extend the page. These are performance-ready lines and micro-routines. Think of them as pocket-sized DBT, rewritten for silence and safety. Each script follows a pattern. Cue, 2 to 4 simple steps, and a short rehearsal suggestion. They are not therapy. They are stabilizers. They reduce distress fast, so the person can function, sleep, or reach a safer moment to decide what comes next. Distribution matters as much as content. This chapter covers discrete delivery methods that protect both sender and receiver. It covers coded formats that look like calendars, duty notes, or innocuous checklists. It includes consent language that can be spoken in 3 sentences, and options for anonymous sharing when consent cannot be obtained openly. It also links these practices back to the safety thresholds and documentation rules you already use. You will get templates you can adapt immediately. Each template is accompanied by quick clinician notes on when to use it, when not to use it, and how to document its use with minimal risk. There are also short vignettes showing how one-page psychoeducation and a 2-line de-escalation script changed an outcome in the field. Practical, tested, and ethical, these tools are for people who cannot wait for permission to feel safer. 60-90 second skill scripts, templates, samples, and delivery tips. 60 to 90 second skill scripts are small, repeated actions people can use in high-stress settings to stop escalation, regain calm, and buy time for safer choices. Each script follows a tight template, cue, 2 to 4 steps, and a rehearsal prompt. Cues can be sensory, feel the badge on your chest, situational, before entering a shift, or a discreet signal from a peer. Steps must be specific, observable, and easy to do without drawing attention. For example, paced breathing for 20 seconds, pressing fingertips together, or naming 3 colors in the room. The rehearsal line reminds the user how to practice privately. For instance, practice once during shift change, 3 times this week. Templates should be portable and adaptable. Use one-line scripts that fit on a small card, or a single row in a duty log that looks like routine information. A practical template looks like this. Cue, when alarms sound. Steps. 1. Breathe 4 in, 6 out for 20 seconds. 2. Ground. Press thumb to index finger 3 times. Rehearsal. Practice at next alarm test. A second sample for interpersonal safety. Cue, heated exchange. Steps. 1. Pause and count to 5 silently. 2. Use the line, I need a moment, back in 2. Rehearsal. Role play once with a teammate. Keep wording neutral, so the script reads like operational procedure if seen by others. Delivery matters more than creativity. Embed scripts in existing paperwork, field guides, or innocuous apps to reduce exposure risk. Teach skills via short demonstrations during roll call, paired with a simple consent line that takes under 10 seconds. For example, I have a quick tool to help focus under pressure. Want to try it now? When consent cannot be obtained openly, use anonymous distribution routes, such as sealed envelopes, preloaded devices, or coded flashcards that resemble checklists. Train a small cadre of trusted peers to model and coach the scripts, with clear documentation rules that minimize identifiable notes while preserving safety-relevant decisions. A key ethical and practical point is knowing when not to rely on microscripts. These tools stabilize. They do not treat chronic conditions, nor do they resolve acute suicidal intent or severe dissociation. If someone shows persistent impairment, escalating risk, or needs medication management, the script is a bridge, not a destination. Protocols must state thresholds for escalation, who to contact, and how to document decisions. using the proportionality checklist referenced earlier. That keeps the strategy safe and defensible, while preserving the discreet, immediate help these scripts provide. Quick emphasis point. These scripts are not substitutes for therapy. They are immediate stabilizers, designed to reduce harm and preserve functioning until a safer, more comprehensive intervention is possible. Quick emphasis point. Practice and repetition make them automatic. Spend 5 minutes a day rehearsing one script, and it becomes usable under stress. Discrete cues, covert artifacts, and embedding skills into routines. Think of covert cues and artifacts as a pocket toolbox sewn into a uniform. The tools are ordinary at a glance, but each one is chosen and arranged so a person can reach it without drawing attention. A pen becomes a grounding object, a wristwatch vibration times a breathing set. A badge edge is a fingertip signal to press and release for grounding. The goal is predictability and ease, so a skill can be used under stress with the same simple motions every time. Design cues, so they blend with routine. Use sensory anchors that already exist in the environment. For example, the click of a radio, the chime on a door, or the feel of a clipboard. Pair a single cue with one micro skill. Keep the steps to 3 or fewer, and limit rehearsal to short, specific moments like shift change or equipment checks. This reduces cognitive load and makes the response almost automatic, like touching a pocket for a flashlight before entering a dark room. Create covert artifacts that look operational rather than therapeutic. Examples include a logbook with a one-line rehearsal prompt at the bottom of each page, a laminated ID card with a tiny color dot that cues a 20-second breathing cycle, or a sticker on a gear case that reminds someone to name 3 colors. Digital options include apps with benign labels and an innocuous icon, or audio files hidden under recorded checklists that play a 60-second skill script. The artifact should be defensible if discovered, described as part of routine performance or safety checks. Embed skills into existing procedures so they feel like part of the job. Add a one-line micro-skill to pre-shift checks. Include a 30-second grounding cue in handover scripts, or teach a de-escalation line during mandatory communication drills. Train small peer pairs to signal each other discreetly, using agreed cues that match operational language. Document training as safety competency, not therapy, and keep written records minimal and factual to protect confidentiality. Quick emphasis point. Rehearse in plain sight. Short, repeated practice during normal tasks builds automaticity without raising suspicion. Quick emphasis point. Match the tool to the task. A vibration timer works for breathing. A textured badge edge works for grounding. And a one-line script works for de-escalation. Keep it simple, repeatable, and easy to explain as operational procedure if needed. Chapter 3. Discrete mindfulness and grounding techniques. Nearly 1 in 4 high-risk workers will report a stress-related episode they could not manage on duty. That figure is not a prediction. It is a statement about risk and reality. In many settings, stopping to talk to a counselor is not an option. Open self-care can be punished, misunderstood, or simply impossible. This chapter gives tools that fit into that reality, not tools that require time off, privacy, or visible help-seeking. Discrete mindfulness and grounding are about doing less to gain more. Tiny adjustments can shift physiology, attention, and decision-making in under 30 seconds. These are not long sights on a cushion. They are micro-practices you can perform while standing in formation, driving a convoy, or moving through a monitored facility. The goal is stability in the body, so the mind can stay useful, calm, and focused. Start with the body. Posture and weight are the quietest, most reliable anchors you have. Where you place your weight, how you stack your spine, and how your feet meet the ground, tell your nervous system what to do. A slight redistribution of weight, or a mindful change in head alignment, will lower heart rate variability, reduce muscle tension, and shorten recovery time after a shock. These shifts are unremarkable to observers and powerful for the person doing them. We will define a set of silent body anchors that work in operational contexts. Each anchor has a cue, a one-line action, and an immediate outcome. Examples include shifting weight evenly between feet to steady attention, softening the shoulders to reduce startle, and aligning ears over shoulders to improve breathing without calling attention. These anchors pair easily with the covert cues and artifacts described previously, and with the 90-second Micro-DBT scripts you already know. You will also see short vignettes from the field, a corrections officer who used a hidden posture cue to keep calm during a cell entry, a medic who used a weight shift to stop panic while triaging under fire. These are practical, not theoretical. They show how small, repeatable movements become muscle memory that supports safer behavior and clearer thinking. At the end of the chapter, you will get simple rehearsal plans. They are designed for quick practice during normal routines. They include brief troubleshooting notes and language you can call on if asked what you are doing. The emphasis is on safety, discretion, and usability. If you can stand, you can practice these anchors. They will help you stay steady in the moment and recover faster afterward. 30-second micro-grounding, sensory anchors, and quick return protocols. 30 seconds can change biology. The micro-grounding routine below uses simple sensory anchors to shift attention from a rising surge of emotion back into the body. The goal is stability, not escape. Use it when there is no private space, while you are standing in line, walking a perimeter, or sitting in a briefing. The steps are designed to be silent, repeatable, and non-reactive, so they do not draw attention. Start with a single cue, something small and reliable you can notice without moving much. For example, the feel of your shoe against the ground. Name it silently. Feel the pressure under the ball of your foot for 3 seconds. Then move attention to the weight on your heels for 3 seconds. Repeat one complete cycle 3 times. Finish by softening your jaw and inhaling a slow breath. This sequence takes under 30 seconds and recalibrates the vagal brake enough to lower reactivity and increase task focus. Add a second anchor if you need extra pullback to the present, a discrete sensory input like the texture of fabric on your wrist or the cool air on your cheek near the ear. Touch that area lightly with the pad of one finger for 2 seconds. Notice its temperature and let your attention ride the sensation for another 3 seconds. This tactile cue is useful in movement because it requires almost no change in posture and is socially neutral. Pairing pressure and touch creates 2 separate sensory tracks the brain can use to break a spiraling thought pattern. Quick return protocols get you back to work without a big emotional residue. After the grounding cycle, choose a single action that signals completion. For example, lining up your shoulders, checking your gear, or saying a one-word anchor, silently like steady or focus. Perform that action. Scan for one bodily signal that changed, then proceed with the task. The ritual closes the loop, reinforces the skill, and reduces the chance the feeling will linger or re-escalate. Practice makes these anchors automatic. Rehearse the full 30-second routine during low-stress moments, when you are doing routine tasks, or during a short break. Run it twice a day for a week, and note how quickly the physiology shifts during stress. Small, predictable repetitions build muscle memory that works when you cannot talk, cannot stop, and must keep performing. Keep it plain, keep it private. Use a single cue you can access anywhere. Keep the movements minimal, and have a brief completion ritual. These elements together make a 30-second micro-grounding that is effective, discreet, and ready when you need it. Covert breath, incidental object anchors, and peer cueing for safe field use. Think of your regulation tools as a pocket compass. The compass sits quietly, does not call attention to itself, and points you back to stability when the environment spins. Covert breath techniques function like that needle. They are short, internal, and repeatable. Use them to slow the pull of panic, steady decision-making, and preserve readiness without anyone knowing you are managing your state. Start with a 6 to 10 second covert box breath. Inhale silently for a count of 4. Hold 1 second. Exhale for 4. Hold 1 second. Then return to task. Do this without moving your chest or shoulders noticeably, by focusing on the lower ribs and belly. Keep your face neutral, and if you must, time breaths with a routine action, like tapping a finger on your thigh. Brief practice turns this into a background habit, like checking a watch, which interrupts escalation before it becomes obvious. Incidental object anchors are the compass housing on your keychain. They are ordinary items you already have permission to handle, and you attach meaning to them in advance. Choose a small object, for example a pen, coin, or a seam on your uniform, and assign one micro-skill to that object, for example, 2 slow breaths, or a single jaw release. When stress rises, touch the object and run the micro-skill. The act of touching creates a sensory bridge that pulls attention back to the present, without speech or visible change in behavior. Combine covert breath with an incidental anchor for stronger effect. Touch the object. Breathe 1 full slow cycle. Then scan for 1 bodily change, such as softened shoulders. This 3-step loop is fast, private, and repeatable. Train it during low-stress moments until the sequence becomes automatic. The anchor then cues the breath, and the breath stabilizes the body, creating a tidy mini-routine that works while you remain fully operational. Peer cueing works like a compass case, clipped to another person, discreet and protective. A prearranged, subtle gesture between 2 trained peers signals, I am off balance and need my micro-routine. Use gestures that fit the setting. For example, a brief hand rub, touching a collar, or a light tap on a forearm. The recipient then gives space or uses a pre-agreed follow-up. For example, a non-verbal thumbs up after 1 minute to indicate recovery. Peer cueing requires rules. Consent is primary, and everyone must agree on signals and limits beforehand. Keep the cues simple, culturally appropriate, and easy to document later if required. When used correctly, peer cueing turns an individual skill into a small networked safeguard, preserving safety and performance without breaking confidentiality. Chapter 4. Emotion Regulation. Micro tools for immediate use. You are on a call that just went sideways. The caller is yelling. Your hands are busy with equipment. Your chest tightens and your thoughts tunnel. You have 2 minutes before you must act, and you cannot show panic. This is a moment many people in high-risk roles know well. It is also the exact moment when small, well-rehearsed actions matter most. This chapter gives you tools sized for that moment. They are not long therapies. They are tiny, evidence-informed routines you can do in seconds. They stabilize your body, stop the mental spiral, and protect decision-making. They work in public, under scrutiny, and when privacy is impossible. Start with the simplest anchor, the 5-second calm. It is a single, intentional pause. Breathe in for 2 counts. Slow the shoulders. Breathe out for 2 counts. That pause interrupts momentum. It buys time. It reduces reactivity enough to choose the next step. When a little more is needed, use the 90-second routine that follows. I call it name, validate, shift body, reframe, reconnect. It is a fast, structured sequence you can run silently. Name the feeling you notice. Say, quietly in your head, anger or fear. Validate it, for example. That makes sense, given what happened. Shift body by changing posture, softening jaw, or grounding through your feet. Reframe with one brief, task-focused thought. For example, I can handle this step. Reconnect to the present by scanning 5 senses or touching an incidental anchor. Each step is short. Together, they restore clarity without drawing attention. Later in this chapter, you will find exact scripts, timing cues, and brief rehearsal drills to build automaticity. You will also read short case examples, showing how these micro tools kept people safe and effective in the field. The goal is simple, practical change. Learn to use the 5-second calm and the 90-second routine until they feel like breathing. They will become your first, fastest line of defense. Pocket distress, toolkit, discreet, sensory hacks, mental games, and escalation triggers. Think of the pocket distress toolkit as a set of tiny, reliable interventions you can carry without calling attention to yourself. Each item or practice is chosen for speed, low visibility, and physiological impact. The goal is immediate stabilization, not long-term therapy. So tools favor short sensory inputs and simple cognitive moves that reset arousal in under 60 seconds. Pocket tools work best when rehearsed until they are automatic, and when you have clear rules for when to escalate to help. Treat the toolkit like safety gear, not decoration. Inspect and practice it regularly. Start with discrete sensory hacks that reliably cut through sympathetic activation. Cold stimulation is one of the most powerful options, and it can be delivered with a wet towel, a metal pen pressed to the upper lip, or a tiny handheld cold pack kept in a pocket. Tactile grounding uses an incidental object, like a ring or a textured patch on a watch band, pressed under the thumb with a 5-count squeeze, which gives fast sensory feedback without moving your hands much. Auditory anchors are also useful. A low-volume preset tone on a wrist device, or a 1-second mental song cue that you rehearse, to shift attention away from threat appraisal. Combine 2 senses when possible, for example, cold plus texture, to widen the physiological shock to the stress loop and shorten recovery time. Mental games are the second pillar, and they are all about redirecting attention and testing catastrophic thoughts with lightweight reality checks. Use forced choice counting. For example, name 5 blue objects in the room, or silently count backward from 97 by 3s to widen cognitive bandwidth and reduce emotional intensity. Reframe in one sentence using task language, such as, "This is intense, but I can complete the next step," which moves the brain toward problem solving. Use micro-challenges that feel slightly absurd, like listing 3 uses for a common object, to break automatic negative loops and introduce cognitive flexibility. Practice these games until they are faster than the panic. Speed makes them usable when your hands are full, or your role requires continuous vigilance. Escalation triggers must be explicit, simple, and shared with trusted colleagues where possible, so secrecy does not become harm. Define objective thresholds. For example, persistent suicidal ideation with plan and means, loss of situational awareness that threatens safety, or physical collapse that automatically move you from toolkit strategies to seeking help. Include low-profile escalation routes, like code phrases in radio traffic, prearranged brief text codes, or a task-based excuse to step away for privacy. Document the decision, the trigger, and the chosen pathway after the fact, even when initial steps were covert, to maintain accountability and support. Finally, build a restoration plan when safe, to return autonomy, debrief, and update safeguards. Keep the toolkit lightweight and redundant, because loss or inspection is inevitable in some settings. Choose 2 items for each sensory modality, small enough to hide in standard gear pockets and durable enough for daily use. Rotate items on a schedule to prevent habituation, and pair each physical tool with a one-line mental script and a rehearsal cue. Train in pairs, using anonymous feedback about what felt realistic in the field, and refine the toolkit based on direct trials rather than assumptions. Use clear rules, not vague hopes. If safety is at stake, escalate. Practice until the micro tools feel like muscle memory. Chapter 5. Building and sustaining protected peer networks. 1 in 4 frontline workers will meet criteria for a mental health problem within a year, yet many cannot seek help openly without risking job loss, disciplinary action, or worse. That statistic is both urgent and avoidable. When formal help is dangerous or impossible, the single most effective protective factor is a trusted peer. This chapter shows how to build small, protected networks that deliver real skills, run safely, and survive scrutiny. Protected peer networks work when they are simple, covert, and rule-bound. They are not informal gossip circles. They are engineered systems with clear roles, predictable flows, and built-in safeguards. Think pods for day-to-day check-ins, ladders for escalating care, and buddy systems for immediate safety. Each structure has a specific function. Combined, they create redundancy, so no single failure collapses support. Design matters. A pod is a tight group of 3 to 6 members who meet quietly in routine ways, using pre-agreed cues and micro-practices. A ladder defines who does what when a problem exceeds a pod's capacity, including low-visibility escalation routes and thresholds that trigger them. A buddy system pairs people for shift-level monitoring, with discrete signals for stepping in. Practical templates and short scripts in this chapter make these designs teachable and repeatable. Security and ethics must guide every decision. Confidentiality protocols, consent scripts, and documentation procedures are not optional paperwork. They are the spine of the network. This chapter offers checklists to assess risk, templates to document decisions, and procedures to restore full consent when it becomes safe. You will learn how to balance duty to protect with respect for autonomy. We translate DBT microskills into peer-friendly routines. Expect 60-90-second teaching scripts, rehearsal cues, and simple role-play formats you can use in a briefing room or between tasks. You will also find low-profile artifacts and habit hooks that embed practice without drawing attention, and guidance on rotating tools to avoid discovery or habituation. Finally, sustainability is treated as a practical enterprise. Building a protected network means training, supervision, and maintenance. It means negotiating with leaders for limited protections, designing anonymous feedback loops, and scheduling regular reassessment. The goal is not perfection. It is a resilient system that keeps people safe, restores choice, and preserves careers. This chapter gives you the blueprint to start. Protocols for anonymity, consent, and safe disclosure. Protected peer networks must start with clear, simple rules for anonymity. Define what members will share, how they will record it, and who may access records. Use minimal coded documentation, dated only with initials or non-identifying tags. Train every member in the exact language of the codebook, and require a brief consent script before any conversation that may include distressing personal material. Reinforce that anonymity is a practice, not a one-time decision. Revisit consent whenever circumstances change or a new person joins. Consent in constrained settings needs to be active, reversible, and situation-specific. Use a 2-step consent model. First, explicit permission to engage in peer support. Second, limited consent for specific disclosures, such as safety threats or legal risks. Make the exceptions explicit and scarce, for example, imminent harm to self or others, or when legal obligations clearly require reporting. Document the consent steps in a neutral, non-identifying way, and schedule regular check-ins to restore full informed consent. as soon as it is safe to do so. Safe disclosure protocols protect both the person disclosing and the group. Create a scripted gateway question that signals potential escalation, a short pause for the buddy to check capacity, and a discreet escalation route if needed. Use pre-agreed micro-signals to indicate that a conversation should be paused or moved to a more secure channel. Assign one member in each pod the temporary role of safety coordinator for any given shift. Rotate that role frequently, and document only the fact that escalation occurred, not the content of conversations. Record keeping should balance auditability and risk. Keep 3 tiers of notes, each with stricter limits on identifying information: operational logs, dates, shifts, coded flags; safety logs, thresholds triggered, actions taken; and clinical notes, kept only by clinicians when available, off-network and secure. Store operational and safety logs in encrypted minimal formats, and define retention periods based on legal review and organizational policy. Always include a brief justification when anonymity is overridden, and schedule a debrief to restore trust. Quick emphasis: anonymity does not remove responsibility. When someone is at imminent risk, the network must follow pre-agreed ethical and legal steps, even if anonymity is affected. This is not betrayal, it is containment. Quick emphasis: practice the consent script until it feels automatic. Include it at the start of every check-in, and treat it as non-negotiable. Regular rehearsal prevents rushed or inconsistent consent under pressure. Sustaining networks: leadership buy-in, record hygiene, and quiet evaluation. Leadership matters more than you think. Buy-in is not just permission to run a program, it is active protection. Start by translating risk mitigation into leader language. Operational readiness, liability reduction, workforce retention, and mission resilience. Present the peer network as a safety protocol with simple metrics, a legal review summary, and a containment plan for worst-case events. Make the ask specific, low friction, and time-limited. For example, approval for a 3-month pilot with scheduled reviews. Offer a minimal governance map, naming who signs off on escalation and who holds the legal backup, so leaders can see checks and balances at a glance. Quick emphasis: leaders fund what they can measure. Provide brief, relevant indicators. Record hygiene is a practical safeguard, not paperwork for its own sake. Use the 3-tier logging system described earlier and enforce strict fields: date, coded tag, action taken, outcome flag, and retention end date. Train members to avoid free text narratives. Use only approved code words, and never store identifying data on personal devices. Backup logs to an encrypted, access-controlled location, and audit access weekly. Clear rules about deletion and retention reduce both legal exposure and inadvertent betrayals of trust. Quick emphasis: less detail recorded equals less risk, but record what matters for safety and accountability. Quiet evaluation keeps programs alive without drawing attention. Replace public dashboards with private executive summaries that focus on safety triggers, participation rates, and near-miss learning points. Use short-cycle, low-burden feedback tools. For example, 2-question check-ins after a shift, anonymized pulse surveys every month, and a confidential incident review for any escalation. Frame evaluation as risk monitoring, not therapy auditing. Aggregate results before sharing upward, and avoid case-level information in leadership briefs. Sustaining networks requires role clarity and redundancy. Rotate the safety coordinator role. Train at least 2 backups per pod, and document handovers in coded logs. Build routine practices into existing workflows, so support feels like part of the job, not an extra task. For example, a 60-second consent script at shift start, or a neutral sign-off phrase at the end of critical incidents. Establish a legal and ethical review cadence, quarterly or semi-annual. to reassess consent exceptions and retention windows. These structures prevent single points of failure and keep the network functional when people move or leave. Common misconception: confidential peer support means zero documentation. Clarify: documentation should be minimal, purposeful, and tiered. Zero documentation increases risk because there is no audit trail for decisions made under pressure, no evidence that escalation thresholds were reached, and no record protecting members from blame. Good record hygiene balances privacy with accountability, using coded, time-limited notes that support safety while minimizing identifiable content. Teach the group exactly how to record, who may access each tier, and when documents must be purged. Quick emphasis: protect privacy, but do not sacrifice accountability. Keep records that would help explain a decision in a legal or operational review, and nothing more. Author's bio: Strikey is a former middle school teacher and community workshop leader who turns overlooked talents into small adventures. Combining classroom wisdom with hands-on experiments, they help young readers find confidence through curiosity and play. Their stories are practical, playful, and full of surprises, shaped by years running after-school clubs and a lifelong love of puzzles, backyard science, and impromptu theatre. Strikey lives with a rescue dog and an ever-growing stack of notebooks, and invites readers to uncover the skills hiding in plain sight.